Hello and welcome to the Let's Go Zero low cost, no cost ways to save energy webinar. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for taking your time out of your very busy schedules, I'm sure, to join us this afternoon. Thank you to Suzanne, who's sorting out the tech for us today. So while she's admitting people from the waiting room, we'd love it if you're happy to let us know in the chat who you are, your school, what your role is, and maybe one thing that you are already doing to save energy. I'm sure there are lots and lots of things that you're already doing and brilliant ideas that you've got. So today you'll be hearing from myself, Libby, and Jazz and Matt, and we are all part of the Climate Action Advisor team for Let's Go Zero. And I'm really pleased to welcome Nikki, who's here today to speak to you from Energy Sparks. The first part of today will be lots and lots of different energy saving tips. And then we'll have about 15 minutes in the breakout rooms with the idea of having a chat about some of the things that you're already doing, maybe discussing potential solutions to any barriers that you are up against. The breakout rooms won't be recorded. The breakout rooms won't be recorded. So if you're happy to have your camera on, that would be lovely. And we're in webinar mode. So if your camera is on at the moment, then you won't be appearing in the recording that we all put online. Questions. If you've got any questions on the way through, please feel free to let us know the questions in the chat as we go. We'll also have time for questions in the breakout rooms. And then at the end, the presenters will stay online. So if there's anything that we haven't covered, please feel free to stick around to ask us questions then. So moving on, Let's Go Zero. Just quickly as an introduction, in case any of you aren't familiar with Let's Go Zero. Let's Go Zero started as a campaign. And the idea behind this is that school leaders can sign up to the campaign. This slide is out of date. Every time I do this slide, it needs updating. Sorry, it's over 7,600 schools, colleges and nurseries are now signed up to the campaign. Excuse me. And so then I love this part of the Let's Go Zero project because I've got colleagues who are working with government advisors, really trying to shift the policies to make it easier for every school to sign up, to take action, which means that if your school signs up to our campaign, and there should be a link in the chat and there's a QR code on the slide, then you can join that campaign and be part of that bigger movement. The other main part of Let's Go Zero is the Climate Action Advisor Project. And schools, colleges and nurseries can contact us for free advice. We try really hard to tailor the advice to what you need in your school. I'm sorry, I do sometimes abbreviate and say school instead of schools, colleges and nurseries every time, but I always mean all three. And now I'll pass over to Matt to talk a little bit about the decarbonisation journey.
Thanks, Libby, and welcome to everybody here. It's a good idea just to place this workshop in the kind of wider context of our work. So you're probably aware that the DfE have asked schools to have a climate action plan this year. And there are four kind of main areas to that climate action plan. You can see in the green boxes there on the top right of your screen. Reducing energy consumption is an important part of that decarbonisation pillar. So that's what we're really focusing on today. There are other things in that decarbonisation pillar, such as transport and commuting, food and procurement, but we're really focusing on energy consumption this afternoon as an important part of your decarbonisation process and part of your climate action plans in schools as well. It's worth also identifying that reducing energy consumption has many benefits, not just about carbon and emission reductions, but also financial savings as well. There's a little bit of an example from one of our schools that works with Energy Sparks there on the right hand side, with significant financial and carbon savings by reducing gas and electricity use there. That was a school in the southeast. And it's also this workshop is really focusing on the low cost, no cost behavioural changes associated with reducing consumption. And we're kind of on a wider decarbonisation journey. This afternoon, we're focusing on those kind of first three bits, the things that won't cost you very much. looking at your kind of baseline data, analysing your patterns of consumption, and then making those behavioural changes to enact change. We're not going to focus on the kind of more expensive infrastructure changes that you might look at doing kind of later on in that decarbonisation journey. So we thought we'd share a few things as climate action advisors that we've seen around schools that we've really liked and we'd like to share with you this afternoon. So each of the advisors will just share a couple of ideas and then we're going to pass on to Nikki at Energy Sparks. So one of the things that I've seen that I really love in schools is the use of student engagement, specifically adopting kind of energy champions or energy monitors in different classrooms or in different parts of your schools. The responsibilities could be many and varied, but the kind of classic things would be kind of turning off lights, turning off projectors at break times and after school, looking at doors and windows, making sure they're closed, particularly if the heating is on, especially at break times and lunch times. Looking at opening blinds, making use of natural light and switching off lights when you possibly can, looking at classroom temperatures, maybe looking at thermostats, and doing things like running holiday switch off campaigns. So if you can get a little checklist of things that can be turned off for the holidays, and I'll show you a couple of ideas in a second, you could get your students to do that as well. There's a couple of images there just from one of the energy monitors who was designated for that particular school there. It's a good idea to rotate the positions of those students, so try and get as many students involved in this as possible, not just from those eco teams and the keen students, but other students from your workplaces as well. And if possible, trying to bring in other staff and even parents and the wider community would be a good idea too. If you want to push those students a little bit further, there's various projects they could do, whether that's labeling lights and appliances to create kind of positive actions. So like the traffic lighting system here with switching off if it's not being used, having a green sticker, the kind of amber switch it off if somebody tells you or if you ask somebody, and then red stickers if you just don't want them to touch it at all. We liked that when we've seen it in schools. You could also teach some lessons as well, specifically on energy and energy saving. There's lots of resources out there for you. I'll show you a couple in just a second, either from Energy Sparks, or we work with another partner organisation called Energy Heroes, which has lots of online resources too. And where possible, if you've got some data for your energy consumption, and Nikki's going to talk lots about this shortly, try and engage your students with that data to monitor and measure the impacts that you're having. So we really like it when students get involved, and the changes that they can enact might be small sometimes, but it can also, the big thing here is about that cultural shift in your school, trying to normalise those small behavioural changes, and getting some students together to kind of really push that can be really beneficial. Just thought I'd mention a couple of resources. This is not exhaustive. There's plenty of others online, but there's just a couple of little examples. So if you go onto Energy Heroes, you can download lots of lesson plans specifically about teaching numeracy through energy consumption. This is just a nice little energy audit on the left that they've created that your energy monitors could take part in. There's some free downloadable assemblies that the National Energy Action organisation has made in the centre there. And there's just one of Energy Sparks resources. There's a whole load on their website. But there's a nice end of term switch off checklist that you could point your energy monitors in the direction of. So we really like this. Do think about doing this in your school. But now I'll pass you over for the next idea. Over to Libby, I think.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Matt. So I thought I'd talk today a little bit about Switch Off Fortnight, because it's a campaign run by the pod, but it was literally my favourite action when I was a sustainability lead in a school, because it felt like a maximum impact for the minimum amount of time that was required from me. I'm sure lots of you are juggling a million responsibilities. So the website has lots of resources that you can use, PowerPoints that you can use in an assembly, lesson plans, things you can include in newsletters. I like that they've got secondary specific resources that could, I think, easily be adapted for colleges as well. Of course, if you are in EYFS, it's possibly the case that you don't actually want to draw attention to the sockets for your 2 and 3 year olds, but this could still be used maybe for the staff. One year when I did this, I was so exhausted, but I got a group of children together, and literally within 10 minutes, they had drawn up a tally chart. They decided who would do the checks on which day, how to award the points, and then how to celebrate it in the assembly afterwards with a class competition. They've got a dashboard where you can add in your meter readings and go into more depth, but it's really quite a flexible project. My absolute favourite part that I wanted to share with you about this project is the Captain Buster's switch off music video, though. Maybe not one for secondaries, but certainly in primaries. I think this is a lot of fun. You could have this playing just as children are coming in and out of assembly, perhaps, maybe even in the staff meetings to get them on board. I really like this campaign because I hear a lot from sustainability leads who tell me, but I'm the person driving this. I'm the person reminding them to switch off the lights, to switch off their computers, and they feel sometimes quite isolated. And so I think this is a great campaign to get everybody on board. So passing over to Jazz.
Thank you, Livy. I'm Jasmine, or Jazz. I'm a climate action advisor in the South East, so I'm very familiar with lots of schools in East Sussex County Council, Izzy. But I'm here to basically tell you about other ways that you can increase your behaviour change for energy reduction and actually using IT to encourage that. So in an ideal world, obviously all staff and students would be switching things off at the end of the relevant time period, whether that's end of the day, end of the week, or end of the term. But realistically, that doesn't always happen. So there are things you can do to employ your natural, or so your existing IT systems to make that happen automatically. Some examples of that would be to install timer control plugs. So they basically go into any charging stations you have, if you have laptop charging trolleys or iPad stations and Chromebook stations, and it means you can automate them to be only on from, say, midnight to 4 a.m. and that means they're not operating 24/7. So that's really great at bringing down your usage overnight. Another option is to have automatic power down of all computers across your schools. So another example is Maiden Early Trust. They put this in for all of their schools and they switch off automatically at around 5 p.m. And that's massively reduced their overall energy consumption. Something important to note is that if you do introduce this, not to also have a power up in the morning. So it means that all IT devices are switched off at a certain time, but they're only switched on if someone wants to actively use it. And another tip is also to have shorter auto sleep settings. So you can put this on computers, laptops, interactive boards and printers. Your IT department or IT team are likely to know how to do this already, or it'll be quite easy for them to put into place. White Knights Primary School, they installed some of those time control plugs, and with some other behaviour change items, they managed to reduce their energy consumption by over a fifth just through optimising their IT and BMS systems. A couple of other options that you can look at just to make it really easy to reduce energy is to reduce your default screen brightness. So if you actually lower that by around 20 or 30%, it's barely noticeable, but it can cut your display energy use by around 10 or 25%. Another option is to switch to a less bright screensaver. So some schools have really bright visuals as their screensaver, but if you change that to quite a dull screen, you can also save money. But ideally, you would have them go into sleep settings after just 5 minutes. And then finally, with all of that, you can basically integrate responsible IT use into your curriculum. So if you have reminders before lunch, if someone's teaching in an IT suite, you can get all the pupils to turn them off just before lunch, because that won't happen with an automatic power down. And also you can just have lessons and posters and increase awareness generally with all subjects around using IT responsibly when it's used. There is a guide called the Sustainable Computing in Schools, which basically shows how you can introduce responsible IT use and IT items into your curriculum. It's got some really good ideas to align your curriculum with the SDGs, and also the WWF have a further guide called the School Sustainability Guide, and that shows some additional things you can do to employ your IT devices to bring down emissions. I'm really pleased to now share with you presents Nikki from Energy Sparks, who's going to share other ways that you can really understand your emissions, understand how your energy is being used, and importantly, how to bring those down.
Thanks, Jasmine. I'm just seeing if I can get onto the next screen now. I've never seen this type of screen before, so it's bear with me for just a moment. So yes, thank you very much, everyone, for having me today. So my name is Nikki. I'm from Energy Sparks. So we've spoken about me or spoken about us quite a lot already. So what we do at Energy Sparks, as a sort of very brief overview, is that we use schools' own smart meter data to spot energy waste and identify free or low cost interventions that can save them money, save them energy and therefore money and carbon. So we combine this with an education programme as well, so that we can get students involved in saving energy. We are a registered charity, so all of our guidance is freely available on our website, whether you have an Energy Sparks account or not. So obviously, if you have the account, then you get the additional analysis as well. So energy is one of those places where schools can really make a difference to climate change. So if you're familiar with emissions reporting, energy makes up the bulk of your school energy makes up the bulk of your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. So these are the things that you have direct influence over. It's how much fuel you're using. It's also one of those lovely areas where making a difference to the environment around you can also save you money. So we're always told, or we always feel like doing the sustainable thing is the expensive thing, and we've got to sort of beg for permission to do something, but this is something where everyone benefits, really. Energy is expensive, so for many schools, reducing or increasing the amount of energy used can be the deciding factor in whether someone keeps a job. So using a tool like Energy Sparks can support sustainability commitments through tailored guidance, but also progress tracking as well. So the data that we receive from energy companies usually comes within a couple of days of you using your energy. So you can very quickly track the impact of any energy saving actions that you take. Staff and students are able to see the impact of their carbon cutting action. So it's a really important thing, a really important part of climate action. So you've got Energy Sparks guidance and pupil activities, so the whole school community can get involved. Pupils learn about and build really valuable sort of analytical, communication, leadership skills, whilst also learning that their actions can make a difference to the world around them. So getting more people involved in climate action, it brings us towards this perfect, this beautiful tipping point, and knowing that each of us can also make a real difference is really important to combat climate anxiety as well. I didn't put this in my slides, but when I saw your lovely bit of savings there, Matt, earlier, I thought I needed to add some notes as well. So the average savings made by schools using Energy Sparks last year was about 10%. So it worked out to about £3,000 and 6 tonnes of carbon dioxide for primary schools, and £17,000 and 29 tonnes of carbon dioxide for secondaries. So a little bit about what we do. Oh, hang on, next slide. I can't do, this is too difficult for me. So our next slide here, we performed some quite complex analysis to assess whether a school is using their energy efficiently and spot problems as well. So we analyse when schools have their heating on, how much electricity is being used overnight, and then we also use this to recommend specific energy saving actions. So we also provide analysis at a group level. So multi-academy trusts, local authorities and other groups can use Energy Sparks to spot, to support their schools in making savings. So that's the kind of complex bit, but we also present data in really simple format. So the idea is that it's very usable for a non-technical audience. So these charts that I've got here, let's see if I can put a little pointer on. Here we go. So these charts are our sort of simplest versions of our charts. And all of our charts are interactive as well. So if this was a real screen, you can kind of get rid of bits here and there and things like that. And you can change the units as well, because who really feels comfortable talking in kilowatts and kilowatt hours, but being able to talk in pounds and carbon dioxide is a much easier way to do it. But this first chart here on the left shows annual gas use, and each of the bars here is 1 week of the year. So the colour coding shows whether the school is open or closed, if it's the weekend and holiday. So immediately you can see quite easily what's going on in this school. You can see it's much higher in the winter, lower in the summer, but crucially you can see these red lines where the school is using as much gas during the holidays as it's using during term time. And if we click on the chart, we would zoom in and then we'd get this weekly view here. So this is Sunday to Saturday. And that shows that almost as much gas is being used on the weekend days as during the week. So again, this is a really, you very quickly find things out. We can zoom further in by clicking on one of these as well. And then so you get to this chart. So this is every half-hour period of a day. And again, you can see immediately what's happening here. Their heating is going on at midnight and coming back off again at about 5 p.m. So it's really early having it coming on at midnight. So a really important part of doing this sort of monitoring is just making sure that your heating system or anything else using energy is doing what you think it's doing. And that's a really sort of difficult message to get across sometimes, because we all like to think that we're doing the right thing, and maybe we are doing the right thing, but the heating system doesn't always do what we think we've told it to do. So it's a really important part. And having visibility of your data, whether it's with Energy Sparks or just by downloading your data from your energy company, requesting it from your energy company, can really help you to spot these sorts of problems, as quickly as you possibly can. So the other thing to think about as well is whenever you're making any sort of action plan, so thinking climate action plans now, it's a really good idea to consider what your biggest priorities are. So some of the things that you might consider are how much something costs. So generally, we try to look at the low cost, no cost actions as much as possible, but it is something if you're doing a big plan that you want to think of the costs. Also, how big the potential savings are, whether that's cost or carbon. And then also how much effort and how many people would be required to complete a task. So I think it's really easy with sustainability to put all of your efforts into a single task that we've been told is really important. And so we might spend, I don't want to belittle anything here, but we might spend all of our time being so careful about switching lights off and telling everyone to switch lights off, when actually our lights are really efficient and our boiler is on 24 hours a day. It's very common that we kind of really try hard on something that's not the big problem for our school. So we provide a table like this. You can see here that gives us some big sort of energy saving themes and shows the potential savings for all of these things. So you can see here, this top one is reducing your electricity baseload. So that's the stuff, the electrical equipment that is buzzing away in the background all the time in your school. So things like fridges and freezers and servers and security lights, and then all the stuff that gets left on. And that is your electricity baseload. And then the next one down here is reducing your out of hours gas use. So these are generally for almost every single school, these are the two biggest things that will save you the most money and the most carbon dioxide. So it's a really helpful way of doing this, to be able to sort of put a bit of context into what we're trying to do. And these savings that are calculated here are based on comparing a school with our sort of top performing schools in our database of about 1,200 schools across the country. I'll just go on the next one. And just a few examples, and I know I've probably spoken for too long already, but just a few examples of some of the action prompts that we use to encourage schools to take specific energy saving actions. So down the left-hand side here, you can see pupil activities and adult action. So each of these on our website is a link that would take you to lesson plans or guidance for staff. And these are things that have been recommended to a school. So this is from that previous school that we were just looking at that had baseload as their top thing. So these are recommendations from their baseload page that says, if baseload is the thing that you really want to reduce, then these are some actions that you can take around your school. And then this list underneath here is from, we also have a recommended actions page as well. So if a school was going, what am I going to do with my pupils today? I'll go to my recommended activities page, and it brings up, here's some things that we think you should be working on right now. We have over 140 pupil activities, and they all come with instructions, but I know that these being given a big list is quite overwhelming sometimes. So we have ways of recommending, or we have programs of related actions that people can work through as well to try and reduce that burden of just thinking of the next things. So we also have a school board. So every time a school logs that they have done a particular action, we like to reward them with scores, and then also at the end of the year, points and prizes. So a bit of competition can really help get people enthused about making a change. We do have a few other sort of campaigns and competitions through the year that we run as well. And the final thing I wanted to point out on here is alerts. So we have these automated messages that come up and can also be emailed to schools that are based on energy use patterns, or if there's a sudden increase or a sudden decrease, we'll flag these up to schools. So you can see that this one here, there's been an increase in that overnight, that base load level of electricity use that could potentially cost the school £15,000 a year. So it's a really important one to flag it and fix it as soon as possible. Here we go. So if I've got time, Jazz, have I got time? I wanted to go through my top 3 things for schools to save energy, and it doesn't need to be, this doesn't need to be an Energy Spark school. This is just every school, basically the most important things. It's really hard to break down to 3 things, so these are quite broad 3 things. But schools are unusual buildings in that they are underoccupied for really large periods of the year. So this sometimes feels really odd to say that, because if we work very hard in schools, it doesn't feel like we're not working at those times. But 60% of an average school's energy is used when it's closed to students. So there are huge opportunities to reduce the amount of energy that we're using with very simple means. Basically by being very rigorous with our switching things off and getting our timings and things right, but without impacting our day at school. And I think that's the really crucial thing, is that we're not trying to punish people and make them do less stuff. So these are my top 3, is improving boiler controls, and this time of year it's really important to get that right, reducing out of hours electricity consumption, and then finally talking about it. So reducing boiler controls. The boilers are the single largest energy user in a school, and for most they'll be using gas, which is a fossil fuel, so very large carbon emissions. More than 60% of the school's gas is used outside of school hours, and this is, for most schools, this is down to the settings. So the first thing is, don't trust the default settings of your heating system. Don't trust that it's doing what we think it's doing. Don't trust it if you're just given this handover. Investigate it, make sure it's doing what it should do. So confirm with heating engineers if they've installed a new thing or if they've serviced the boiler. Confirm with them what triggers this boiler to go on and switch off. Is it temperature? Is it timers? Is it a combination? Is it something much more complicated? Make sure you understand how it's controlled and how to tell if it is or isn't doing what you think it's doing. And also, then another thing on here as well is understanding who has the power to make those changes, because it's not always as simple as the caretaker fixes this and does this. Sometimes it's an external company, or it's the trust, or it's the local authority who are able to make those changes. So yes, I've said check what it's doing, what you expect it to do. So if you set the boiler to come on at 6 a.m, how do you know that that's what it's doing? Is there somebody there that's doing it? So if you've got something like Energy Sparks, or you can see your half-hourly consumption, you can check that pretty easily. So if you don't have anything, a way of checking that, you can read your meter overnight. So before you leave school and first thing in the morning, see how much energy it's using during that time. When you're not in, and the same for weekends and holidays as well. If you think the boiler's off, check it, do some meter reads and things like that. Making sure that temperatures are set appropriately as well. And sometimes you might find that you need a policy in place to do this. So temperatures are over here on the right hand side. These are the ones that we use on our website, but they're also the same as the DFE energy efficiency guidance, and there's a link down the bottom there to that as well. So if classrooms are too warm, it's not just that we're wasting energy, but students don't learn as well. So it's really important that we're not overheating things. If we set our timers, if we set our temperatures too high, the boiler will come on earlier in the morning. So the room will be lovely and warm when we get in at 9 o'clock, but by 10, 11, 12 o'clock, we've opened all the windows and let all of that lovely hot air straight out into the world because it's too warm. So once you've got 30 people in a room, very little heating generally needed after that. Note as well that you don't have to, so we've got 18 degrees on here, that is the temperature to heat up to. If your heating goes above 18 degrees, you don't need to cool down to 18. Cooling to 18 will feel cold. So in the middle of summer, please don't put your air conditioning on to 18. Or if you've got one of those sort of combined heating and cooling systems, if you set the heating and the cooling to 18 degrees, everyone will be cold all the time and you'll be using loads of energy constantly. And then finally, just making sure that we've got appropriate holiday settings. So winter settings, making sure that we've got frost protection settings so that the heating will come on if there's a risk of pipes freezing or if there's a risk of damp, if you've got a particularly damp school. And it shouldn't need to be warm in the school, it just needs not to be freezing. During summer, just make sure that you don't rely on your thermostat as well. It's a silly thing to be talking about right now because I am freezing, but it's very common for schools not to switch their heating off at the end of winter. They just expect it not to come on. And so that's just a really important thing to think about as well. And also, don't forget that these things also apply to hot water. So timing on your hot water as well, unless you have really specific Legionella issues, there shouldn't be any requirement to leave your hot water running 24 hours a day. And again, you can find that from the DFE guidance. Reducing the out of hours electricity consumption as well. So this is a statistic in this orange box here. Oh, hang on, I haven't moved on. This is a statistic, there you go, that I pulled out of our database yesterday. So the average school spent more than £1,100 on electricity during half term last year. Electricity is really expensive. So in a school, things left on or things on standby will really quickly add up, much, much more so than in a house. So making a list is a great start. I think it was Matt that shared a list earlier on from Energy Sparks. So that's a really useful thing, absolutely necessary. And only things that are absolutely necessary should be left on outside of school hours. And if something does have to be left on, so if you've got something like a fridge or a freezer that has to be left on all holidays, just make sure that they are as efficient as possible. So some of our schools have identified fridges and freezers that cost over £1,000 a year to run. So using an appliance monitor, we'll put one here. One of these, anything with a plug on can be plugged in and find out how much energy it uses. For things like fridges and freezers, they tend to switch themselves on and off throughout the day. So plug them in for a 24-hour period if you can. And it might be that actually they're cheaper to replace. So it might be that in the long run, even not that long a run, so we've got some schools that have paid back the investment within a couple of months of buying a new freezer. And really find what works best for you. So in Jasmine's session, she was talking about putting things on timers and automating things. So if you find that bugging people and reminding people doesn't work, then automating is absolutely fine. We've got lots of examples of schools like the Maiden Early Trust. I think Harris Federation in London as well saved a huge amount of money by doing an automatic IT switch off. So really important. And then finally, this is something that comes up. Oh, honestly, I can't do this switching between things. This is something that comes up in climate action plans all the time. So talking plays a huge role in creating social change. So making sure that staff and students and governors and parents know that you're trying to save energy and why you're trying to save energy is really important. So add context to these conversations. A school I went to last year found that their touchscreen TVs in their classrooms used 50 watts. So a little trusty one of these used 50 watts of energy while they were on standby. So they had 15 boards around the school. If they leave their boards on standby all the time outside of school hours, it cost them over £600 a year just to leave them on standby. So if people understand that, they're much more likely to act on it than just, oh, please could you switch off? It's probably wasting a bit of energy. It's like, this is £600. This is a really big thing. That's a lot of glue sticks. So make sure that people know what's expected of them, who has responsibility, who is in charge of checking things, who's making sure that things are switched off. definitely get the students involved in that as well, because they love it, and they're really useful for things like that. Instilling those behaviours in children means that they can take it home, they can take it into their future careers. It's really, really helpful like that. So that is my final slide. I do have there's some demos on our website as well. So you can just click on that little link there and you can watch a whole demo of me, lucky things, walking through Energy Sparks. And there's also videos on our website of all sorts of different things. So please do feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for all of your expert advice there. Before we move on, we've just had one question by Sheila who you might be able to see in the chat, and Matt has already addressed it, but can you separate when consumption's from lettings as opposed to when it's used by your school community?
Yes, so thank you, Matt. You've answered that already. So we allow schools to change their school opening and closing times, and then also to add in community use times. So if they have external lettings or they have holiday clubs, things like that, then they can add those in. So we can give you a good idea of how much energy you're using and communicate with those groups as well.
Great. So, Libby, have you got something else to ask?
I have. Thanks, Nikki. That was brilliant. I love Energy Sparks. I'm just wondering, would you be able to clarify which parts of Energy Sparks are free and which are on the paid for service, please, for me?
Yeah, so everything you can see on our website. So all of our activities, the pupil activities and our sort of guidance, we call them the staff actions, they're all free. So you can just peruse at your heart's content. The bit that you need to pay for is the energy analysis. So us getting your energy data from your energy companies and then doing the analysis on it.
Thank you. So the next part of our webinar will involve having breakout rooms. So we're really excited to give you the opportunity to speak to one another, whether you're part of a council, whether you're part of a multi-academy trust or a school, just to share what you feel would be feasible within your own school and what would be popular with your community. So there's 3 prompts that we want you to have a think about. The first one is what's something that you're able to do now. So there might be something that you've seen in Nikki's slides or from our slides earlier in the workshop about things that you could basically introduced this week. What's something that you could do this term that might require a bit of thought or some approval from your senior leadership team? And then what's something that you could do this year? So our climate action plans and in general climate action plans are a year long, so it will go towards the end of this academic year. So where would you like to be by the end of that point? So we're now going to put you into breakout rooms and you'll be automatically put in them and we can share some ideas for what you would like to achieve.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you had some good discussions and some rich discussions there. Libby, is it okay to bring back up the presentation just for a second? There was some great discussions in our room. I hope you had some too. Just whilst it's on my mind as well, Nikki from Energy Sparks just shared a nice resource for us in our room, which is all about kind of setting up your boilers ready for winter. So that was quite a useful one in our room. Hopefully it might be useful for other people too. We're going to finish this meeting shortly, but before we do so, it's just a chance for us to kind of feedback on what we've just been discussing. I'd also like to mention that the slides that you've been watching this afternoon will be available to you. They'll be sent to you directly via email. And if you have any questions that are specific to your settings, the whole of our team are going to stick around in this meeting afterwards. So if you're keen to stick around and ask us some questions and get some specific feedback, then please do so. We're not going to rush anywhere. But for now, can we ask you to share a couple of bits about what your next steps might be from what you've heard today? And we'd just ask you to do this in the chat, if that's okay. So something that you are doing now that you'd like to continue doing, something that you can do this term based on what you've heard, and then something that you can do by the end of this calendar year, but before the Christmas holidays as well. And whilst you're typing that, if there's something that you need to do now, if there's any emails that you could send right this second, or if you want to go onto one of the websites like Energy Sparks and Let's Go Zero, we'd really invite you to do that now before it's kind of lost into another school day. because we know how busy you all are. So yeah, please do start typing away. And if you have any specific questions, you can put those in the chat, or feel free to unmic as well and ask us directly too.
Can I just chip in for a second, Matt? It was
Please
just brilliant.
do,
And
Libby.
in my group, it was so lovely to hear everyone talking about different things that they're already doing. Of course, lots of challenges coming up as ever in schools. There are different challenges for everybody, but just sounds like everyone's smashing it already. Honestly, it was just such a pleasure.
Thanks, Libby. Yeah, yeah, we had some equal discussions in our room as well. Some effective use of stickers in one of the schools. They said that stickers went down very well for student engagement. They also had a slogan, something about turning it down, turning it off, or shutting it off. That seemed to be collectively well known across the school as well, and across the trust by the sound of it. So that was really nice to hear as well. Jazz, if there was anything else in your room, please feel free to kind of add it. We're starting to get a few responses as well.
Yeah, I've seen some responses in the chat from our group, but we had some really great discussions. We had quite a range of people in our chat. So Heather from Wirral Council is going to look into their energy data, try to understand those anomalies and where those opportunities are, and then they're going to take it from there with advising schools via climate action plans and what those specific actions they can address are. So she's definitely going to look into energy sparks and their resources. Steve, which I believe comes from a school that you're supporting, Matt, in West Yorkshire, they're making fantastic progress, and they've already got a meeting in with yourself next week and with the PFI building company to check for if they can access their energy data to also understand where their emissions are coming from. And also, yeah, they're involving students and staff, and they want to get that real community engagement. So it was great to hear that they've had their first sustainability meeting in place. And then Catherine also comes from a school, but a small primary, one formentary, and she was saying how they have a school council that look generally at sustainability and other wider issues, but it's a great opportunity to start a separate eco team, and using resources such as those from Energy Sparks will be a great way to start that community engagement and to involve children in the process of lowering carbon footprint.
Fantastic. What brilliant actions from that room as well. So there's just a moment left to have a look at what we've put in the chat there. So lots of work around student engagement, which is great, including post-16 engagement. So yeah, please do feedback anything that's worked well there, Fiona. Some engagement with Switch Off Fortnight, looking at boiler controls, analysing energy data. Would all be fantastic steps. So we're going to close this meeting, but thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We really have enjoyed having those discussions with you. As ever, if you want to continue getting support from Let's Go Zero, please visit our website and get in touch with us. You can get in touch with Energy Sparks as well. We'll be sending you out all of the information after this meeting, but do stick around if you want to continue asking us any questions at all, and have a nice evening.